Video games have always been marketed as fun, as a form of escapism, as worlds we can get lost in for hours on end. But in 2025, there's an uncomfortable truth that we have to face. Playing your favorite hobby has never been more expensive than it is now. Not just because of the $70 or even $80 or even $100 price tag on the box. Not that any of us get boxes anymore, it's a digital box, stay with me. But because of the true cost of gaming today is buried under layers of season passes, cosmetic microtransactions, deluxe editions, and DLC roadmaps that can make one game feel like a subscription service. The question is, how do we get here? Why are games getting increasingly more expensive? And is this rise in cost really about quality? Or is the industry just pricing us out of the very thing that we love? To understand why games are so expensive today, we need to go back in time. For decades, the $60 price point was the industry standard, particularly from the mid-2000s onward. The Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and even the early PS4 era all lived under this unwritten rule. Big budget games were $59.99. But before that, things weren't as simple as we remember. In the 1990s, game prices were far less consistent. A brand new SNES game or Sega Genesis game could cost anywhere from $40 to $80, with some infamous titles like Phantasy Star 6 or Virtua Racing pushing well past the modern $70 barrier when adjusted for inflation. Cartridge-based production was costly, and prices reflected that. When the CD era arrived with PlayStation 1 and Sega Saturn, manufacturing costs dropped, and the standard price came down to a more manageable $50 range. The $60 standard came into play with the HD era, starting with the Xbox 360 in 2005. Publishers claimed that rising development costs and the move to a high definition justified that $10 bump, and for a while that price ceiling held steady. But as games grew bigger, prettier, and more complex, the industry began signaling that this model wasn't sustainable forever. Fast forward to the 2020s when the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X launched. Both Sony and 2K Games made the first bold move by officially increasing the base price of games to $70. Ubisoft, EA, and other major publishers soon followed. At first, it seemed like a bitter pill we'd have to swallow. After all, development costs for modern AAA games have ballooned into the hundreds of millions of dollars. The Last of Us Part 2 reportedly cost around $220 million to produce. Cyberpunk 2077 had a $174 million budget, and that was before all the money they spent fixing it. Call of Duty titles regularly exceed $300 million when marketing is included. But now in 2025, the price creep is accelerating. We're starting to see rumors of $80 base editions becoming the new norm, with publishers pointing to skyrocketing labor costs, longer development cycles, and higher expectations for photorealistic visuals as the reasons behind the increase. Rockstar's GTA 6, slated for early 2026, has already sparked conversations about how its premium editions might exceed $100 before adding microtransactions. The easy explanation is inflation. Everything costs more today. Movies, streaming subscriptions, even fast food. Games haven't had a major base price increase for almost 20 years, so publishers argue they're catching up to modern economic realities. But there's more to the story. The scale of AAA game development has exploded. A PlayStation 2 era game could be made by a team of under 40 developers. Today, blockbuster titles require teams of 500 or more, plus outsourcing studios play an enormous part in modern game production. Games like Assassin's Creed Valhalla or Starfield involve years of production, cutting-edge motion capture and sprawling open worlds that demand enormous technical resources. But the cost doesn't stop at making the game. Marketing budgets have grown almost as large as development costs, with publishers spending tens or even hundreds of millions to ensure a game gets noticed in an oversaturated market. When you add this all up, it's no surprise that publishers are asking for more money up front. Yet, there's a catch, because there's always a catch. $70 is barely the full cost of a modern game. Season passes, DLC expansions, cosmetic packs, and microtransactions have quietly become the industry's real profit engine. The base game is often just a starting point, with players encouraged to buy additional content to get the full experience. Live service games like Fortnite, Call of Duty Warzone, and Destiny 2 thrive on content monetization, selling skins, emotes, and weapon packs. Even single-player games now feature deluxe or ultimate editions that include exclusive cosmetics or early access, sometimes even unique access to quests and storylines that are inaccessible without buying the increased edition. This pushes prices to $90 or $100 before you even touch the controller, or keyboard depending on what you play on. When you combine all these costs, a single game can easily cost a player well over $150 across its lifecycle, far beyond the advertised original price tag. One of the biggest drivers of this price surge is budget bloat. Modern AAA games have become Hollywood-level productions, with ballooning costs for hyper-realistic visuals, licensed soundtracks, celebrity voice actors, and endless feature creep. Developers are under immense pressure to make each release bigger than and better than the previous edition, and more visually stunning as well, because players expect it, and publishers believe they need it to compete. But this arms race of graphics and scale is unsustainable. Every delay, and let's be honest, there's a lot of those, costs millions. Every additional year of development means extended salaries for hundreds of staff members, and when a game underperforms, like Forspoken or Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, it can, and often does, sink the studio that made it. Development cycles that once lasted 2 to 3 years at a max now stretch to 5, 6, or even 8 years. This means studios have fewer releases to rely on, making every game a financial gamble. A single flop can be absolutely devastating. That risk, combined with rising costs, leads to higher pricing, because publishers are trying to secure profit margins in an industry where one hit has to pay for multiple failures. So where do we go from here? Will $80 or even $100 base games become the standard? Possibly. What's more likely is that publishers will continue leaning into microtransactions, subscriptions, and live service models. Game Pass, PlayStation Plus, and Ubisoft Plus already hint at a future where we don't own games, but instead rent them through monthly fees, much like Netflix. The uncomfortable reality is that while games have never been more expensive to make, they've also never been more profitable. Fortnite alone makes billions each year through microtransactions, proving that the base price is just the beginning of the revenue stream. Video games have always been about joy, about the thrill of diving into new worlds and new stories. But the rising cost of this hobby raises a hard question. Is the industry pushing too far, too fast? As games get bigger, longer, and more expensive to make, we may be entering an era where only a handful of mega publishers can afford to compete, leaving the rest behind. And for players, the real cost of gaming might no longer be measured in dollars, but in how much freedom we're willing to give up for the next great experience. But ultimately, I want to know what your thoughts are. Where do you think we're going as an industry with this pricing structure? Why do you think we've got here? And do you think there was anything we can do to try and turn it around? As it is, the industry is on its knees, and I'll be honest, that is a video for another time. Once again, I've been Devoured Games, and if you've enjoyed this, please do like and subscribe, and until next time, something, something, something.